Good evening, I'm Bill Maley, Brighton Supervisor, and I'd like to welcome everyone to the June 11, 2014 Town Board meeting. It's great to have everybody here and watching at home on your computer or on the internet or on your TV. I do want to note that the agenda for tonight's meeting and supporting materials are available in the back of the room. They're also available on the Town of Brighton website. That's townofbrighton.org. We appreciate participation, whether you do it here or at home, and we'll be getting into the open forum portion of the meeting in just a moment. In case of an emergency, you will hear the Town Hall emergency alarm system. In that case, you can leave either by the door to my right, turn right, go down the stairs, out the rear door of Town Hall and move away from the building, or you can exit through either of the two doors in the rear of the auditorium here, out the front door of Town Hall, which will be right in front of you, down the steps, and again, move away from the building. Now, we do occasionally experience technical difficulties with the live cable broadcast of the meeting. If you're watching at home and you do experience technical difficulties, please call Time Warner Cable at 756-5000. That's 756-5000. We'll start with a pledge to the flag, and I'll ask Town Board Member Chris Warner to lead us tonight.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will now begin the open forum, and as we consider matters, we are always welcoming input from people here at the meetings or watching at home. We'll recognize you in just a moment, but if you're at home and you'd like to call in to the open forum portion of the meeting, please call 303-3060. That's 303-3060. Someone will take your call or your question, your comments, and pass them on to the town board. If you are deaf or if you're hearing impaired, you may call our TDD line at 784-5205. Again, our TDD line, 784-5205. If you're deaf or hearing impaired and would like to ask a question or make a comment during the open forum of our meeting. During the open forum, members of the audience may address the board on any matter, whether or not it's on our agenda tonight. Now, if you're here to speak at our public hearing, we do have one public hearing tonight on the Buckland Park parking restrictions local law. If you're here to address that and would like to have your comments included in the record, I would ask that you hold your comments until we get to the public hearing. But if you do want to speak with us during the open forum, I'll recognize you in the audience. Please come to the podium. If you would, please give us your name and address. Comments should be directed to the board and not to other members of the audience. Please be courteous and try to keep your comments as concise as possible. If you have longer comments, we'd be happy to take them and enter them as part of the record of this meeting. So with that, we'll now begin the open forum portion of the meeting, and I would invite anybody who would like to speak during the open forum to please do so. Josh?
Hello, my name's Joshua Barth. I'm the county legislator for District 24, which incorporates much of southeast Rochester, but also a large chunk of north central Brighton. And I'd just like to come in on an occasional basis to give reports on what's going on in the county legislature. But first, before I do that, I have to say congratulations to a fine picnic, the bicentennial picnic on June 1st. It was a great event. I got to give my best shot of knocking the supervisor into a dunk tank. I had 6 tries. And I failed. I did not get him in. So I feel a little ashamed about that.
We kept letting you come closer too, Josh.
I know. It was not a good scene. But congratulations. It was a fine event. I brought my entire family there, and we had a great time. And I just want to thank you all for putting that on. It was a good time. Yesterday, the full legislature met, and it was a long meeting, actually, as it turned out, for two reasons. One, we had the county charter proposals discussed and amended and passed ultimately. And as I spoke about 2 weeks ago, most of the changes are relatively minor. Essentially what happened was the commission put forth a set of recommendations to encourage, to put the charter in alignment with current practices. So if the county was not abiding by its own charter, the solution was to change the charter to match current practices. Frankly, that's a step in the right direction. At least it's direct. It tells individuals, hey, these are the rules, and now moving forward, we will abide by them. And so, mainly for that reason, I actually supported the end result of the charter review process, and it did pass along an interesting vote line. I believe it was 23-5. In all fairness, it was not a particularly partisan vote, but there was, of course, some partisanship floating around out there, but I'm happy to say that was not the only thing. The main change I would point out was, in fact, the removal of the requirement to provide the underlying bases for some financial reports within the county budget proposals. But interestingly enough, moving forward, when I looked at that and consulted with some other legislators as well, that in fact was something that was primarily done already, as the case was. And so it really did not and should not result in any major changes. And that is my understanding. The other reason why we had a very long county legislative meeting was we had a very large number of public speakers, and I think that is a wonderful thing. In fact, one person said that they were invited by the county legislator at another town hall to come speak at the county legislature, and this individual did so. And I would encourage anyone watching now to come speak to the county legislature, either in committee or in the full ledge, to actually express your opinions on any matter that is important to you. We do listen, so I would urge you to do that. But the main speakers, the main topic of conversation was social worker. The county social worker union does not have a contract, and there was a lot of people talking about that and some of the situations they face and the challenges they face, and they wanted to make sure that we understood that this was a concern and they really did need a contract. And I think that everyone did listen to them, and hopefully we'll be able to move forward, and the administration will listen. And I think that's always all to the good when people express their needs. And the second major topic of conversation, and there was quite a few, were a number of citizens out from the Ogden area who were concerned about the location of what used to be known as the County Fair and is now as the Agricultural Festival. And they were extremely well organized. And this is noteworthy. They put together as a group call it a report, indicating their concerns, and then given they only have 2 minutes to speak to the county legislator, they broke it up into parts and talked towards those points over the course of approximately 8 speakers with that, and there were numerous other speakers as well. And I was very impressed by that. These are citizens who are concerned, these were citizens who researched what they were talking about, and these are citizens who organized, and they did so in a respectful manner for the most part. And that was something to be commended. And so those are actually really the main highlights from last night. The only other thing I'd point out is that the committee meetings for the next cycle rolls around the week of the 23rd, and they begin at 5 o'clock and they go to approximately 6:30-ish, depending upon how much we have before us. So I always urge people to come to that. And that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. I know we all appreciate the fact that you come in periodically and report on your level of government. I think it's helpful to us. It's helpful to folks that are watching at home. And you know, I share your feeling. We do welcome people coming in and speaking to us. The only difference is we don't have a 2-minute time limit. So most people that come in really make an effort to be reasonable in their comments, and so we have and we will continue wherever possible to let people speak within reason. And of course, we'll always accept those written.
You know, that's an interesting
words.
point, actually. You know, I don't know the basis for why we have a 2-minute time limit.
Well, it's pretty clear, you know, under the, certainly for towns, and I think in general, under the various open government laws in New York, that legislative bodies are allowed to have reasonable rules, and included in those reasonable rules, and Bob Freeman, the executive director of the State Committee on Open Government, and I have talked about some of these issues, but one of those permitted rules is to have a reasonable time limit on speakers. 2 minutes is not a lot of time. I've heard other groups with 3 minutes, other groups with 5. But I will say we have found that for the most part, we don't have a fixed limit.
Mm-hmm.
And if someone is speaking extremely at length, we'll encourage them to wrap up.
Well, hopefully I will never be guilty of that.
Josh, I have a question.
Yes.
Quite a while ago, you said that there was an issue that was not voted on or about indigents and burials. And then in the paper a week or two ago, I read that something was passed finally, or that they are going to be given graves with markers.
Yes, that's the case. However, that's not through the county. It's an alternative form of funding. And there are two things going on there, and one is not set yet. It has to do with the city putting forth a funding stream to provide for some additional plots to be available on a yearly basis. But that's something that hasn't been settled yet. And then there are some private organizations that put forth an effort to provide additional funding for indigent burials as well. But the county did not get involved, and I shouldn't say it quite like that. The county wasn't involved in providing those additional funds, but we may have been involved in the coordination of it. That I don't know the specifics of that one, though.
Okay. Thank you.
Josh, since we've got you here, I know, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, I think I know the answer here, but we've had some concerns about the condition of the highway out here on Winton Road, 12 Corners in the north. And I know members of our own staff have raised it, and I know driving back from the town hall meeting, town board meeting last time, I was very much aware of the slalom course I was doing down Winton, trying to avoid the potholes with my new tires that Captain Cathaldi insisted that I get. But I understand that that's in the 2015 county budget to repave. Is that correct, or are you aware?
I believe you are correct, but it's not in the county. There is no 2015 county budget plan yet. What they have is a capital improvement plan.
Okay.
However, keep in mind that can change at any point in time, both to the benefit or the detriment of any particular project. And that is something that happens on an ongoing basis. Sometimes it's based upon additional funds being made available. Sometimes it's based on other projects taking priority. So while it's there in the 2015 year, and don't get me wrong, that's great. It's good that it's there. That's not a guarantee, and that's not a slam on the administration. The fact of the matter is, circumstances do change. But if it's there, the odds are very good that it will, in fact, occur, barring unexpected changes or unexpected changes in priorities. And I'm really talking about federal funding there.
Well, there's been a lot of concern, a lot of interest in it, and boy, anything you can do as our county legislator to move that ahead is really appreciated. That's very deteriorated from.
Well, I'll talk to the administration about that actually, and I have, I like to think, a pretty decent relationship, and to find out, just how solid a feeling that is for the 2015 budget. And as I said, there's no reason to think it isn't. I could not tell you specifically, though, that with that particular project, it's any better or any worse off than any other 2015 project.
And interestingly enough, Winton Road straddles the district line, and so I've had a similar conversation with County Legislator Justin Wilcox.
I'd imagine, and that's a good thing, because the more people who are involved, the better the chances that people pay attention.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, and I'm sorry I did go over 2 minutes.
We kept you there. Is there anyone else that would like to address the town board during the open forum? Then if not, we'll continue with the agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Please call the roll.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DeFanzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Motion to approve and file the town board meeting minutes for the May 14th town board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Please call the roll.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DeFanzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. The next item is the public hearing on the proposed local law. That hearing, though, is noticed for 7:30. So we will proceed on with other agenda items and come back to that at 7:30, which is in about 12 minutes. So we'll move from there to bids. Chris.
Bill, this is a matter that was discussed at the FASC meeting. This is to seek approval to solicit proposals and bids to provide construction services for underground sewer crossings that are part of Phase 3 of the Monroe Community College sanitary sewer project. I move that we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney for the town.
Second.
We've talked about the MCC sanitary sewer project earlier phases before, but Tim, just a quick update on this item?
Certainly, Bill. As you know, that we've undertaken doing basically an extension of the sewer on this campus to the south side of the MCC campus, where they would not have sanitary sewer service, but it also serves a dual purpose for our ability to take a couple of pump stations offline, and ultimately this is getting towards the final steps of doing that. So we're up in the front part of MCC along East Henrietta Road, and it's very much needed and very welcomed project, I think, from the standpoint of support of the board for doing this, because it makes us somewhat greener by getting these pump stations offline, letting Mother Nature and gravity do the work.
And in this case, greener is also less expensive.
And that kind of green, correct.
Good. And again, this is just to solicit bids. This will come back to the board once we've received those proposals.
Is it the town that picks up the whole expense, or does MCC pick up some?
It will be a combination. We will probably be able to recoup some of those costs through entrance fees as the district gets expanded, Louise. So it's an investment the town is making up front, and but it allows us, again, twofold. So you are correct. We will be able to recoup some of these costs.
Very good. Anything else? Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Next, communications, Louise? Move to.
I move that we accept the communications as received. We have two communications tonight. One from Cub Scout or Boy Scout Troop 19, thanking the supervisor for attending their 95th anniversary celebration in May, and the other from the Department of Taxation and Finance, Office of Real Property Tax Services, to the supervisor.
Can I have a second?
Second.
I had a great time at the Tejas Troop 19's 95th anniversary. That's a troop made up, it sort of straddles the line again, I'll say that again, between the city and the town of Brighton. It meets at the Tejas, which is there in Cobbs Hill Park. It's a cabin that probably a lot of you have been in for one event or another. I know you have, Jason. This was as part of a camping trip they had out at Mendon Ponds. A lot of people were there, but 95 years for one Boy Scout troop is remarkable. On a related note, a couple weeks after, and this was just a great note. I have the original framed in my office, but all the boys in the troop signed a thank you note to me for attending. But the Seneca Waterways Council of the Boy Scouts of America have recently moved their district headquarters to the town of Brighton, to Brighton Henrietta Town Line Road. The assistant to the supervisor and I were out there last week for their ribbon cutting. And beautiful facility. They've got a small museum of Boy Scout and related memorabilia in there. They have a training center. So we welcome the council to town of Brighton.
Bill, that was my father's troop.
Was it?
Back in the 30s. He's 91 years old, so almost as
Excellent.
old as the troop itself.
Excellent. Okay. Anything further? We have a motion and a second.
Bill, on the other item, in reviewing it here from the State Department of Tax and Finance, I note that our equalization rate has been established at 98%, which is so people can understand when they look at their tax bills that the assessed valuation that our assessor has assigned to your property, you can add another 2% to get to what the state expects is our actual value. But that might also reflect the fact that it's been a while since we had an assessment, which is an expensive proposition. But
it reflects a couple things. One, it does reflect certainly some appreciation in properties in Brighton. It has been a while, but we have a set of guidelines that the assessor uses in her decision to make a recommendation to the town board as to whether we need to do a revaluation. That particular ratio, the equalization rate, as long as it is within 5%, as long as it's gotten no farther than 95%, that's a level that would cause us to look at a reval, that make the determination that we're due to do a reval. So although we have moved off of 100%, it's not far, and we'll continue to monitor that and see where we go going forward.
and there's a good number of other towns in exactly the same rate.
Yes, there are. Most towns are either at 98% or 100%. Okay, thanks, Chris. Motion and a second. Anything further? Please call the roll.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Committee reports. Parks and Recreation Committee. Louise?
The Parks and Recreation Committee has not met since the last town board meeting. Our next meeting will be June 23rd at 4:30 in the afternoon at Brookside School. Public is welcome.
Thanks, Louise. Chris, finances?
Bill, the Finance Committee met on June 3rd, last Tuesday. Many of the matters that were discussed there are on tonight's agenda. In addition, some other items were discussed there. One, we were very pleased to have the ambulance corps come by and show us the new Sprinter-style ambulance. It looks to be a real good alternative to the big box van-style ambulances that we've got in the rest of the fleet there. They're significantly more efficient with fuel. They're safer in terms of how they're organized inside, and the staff that accompanies a patient sits forward rather than sideways. So in the case of a collision, it would be much safer. So we're looking to them to report back on this experiment in using this different type of vehicle, which gets almost half again to twice the mileage that the heavier units get. So that's, and it's also a diesel, as I recall. Is that the case? Yes, it is a diesel. So that was interesting.
And about $80,000
And that's
less
the important
expensive.
thing. Thank you. The others are about
Very significant.
90,000, and this one was 93,000, I think, something like that.
Yeah, I think it was.
180,000 versus 93,000.
Yep.
And that's a big, so we'll see. Maybe they won't last as long, but at that price.
But we've got no reason to think that they won't last as long at this point.
So that was very much appreciated, them bringing that by. Also, we discussed the lease renewal for the AT&T cell tower on the town here. And Suzanne, you're doing some more research on that, I understand. Next, we also had a discussion with the attorney for the town regarding best value contracts and bidding process, which is a bit of a change from just looking at the lowest lowest responsible bidder on every job or every purchase. We can look at best value. And Counselor, do you want to give a thumbnail on that, or?
Just quickly, it was a law passed by the New York State Legislature, went into effect in January of 2012, giving local government the option of adopting a slightly different formula for contracts to purchase items. of $20,000 or more. And it would involve still a quantitative analysis of what the value of a particular item is to the town. So the classic example used is perhaps you have two bids for a truck. One is a lower price up front, but the other, although it's a higher price up front, might get better fuel mileage and therefore cost less over time. So that concept can be applied now lawfully under the competitive bidding guidelines if the town were to adopt a local law electing to give us the option, and it's only that, an option, to use best value awards.
So the discussion was, it seemed to make sense to put that into our code as an alternative, but just as a tool to use. So we'll see how that's best used.
And I think we'll be getting shortly a more formal proposal that the board can consider and take action on.
So those matters were simply discussed, but the rest are on the agenda. And our next meeting will be on June 17th, next Tuesday at 3:30 in the Stage Conference Room here behind us. And as always, the public is invited to attend.
I have Chris?
Yes.
I wasn't able to attend that meeting. Who, is it the department heads who are the ones to determine best value?
Well, ultimately, we have to accept the bids as the town board, and of course, it has
But
to
when
go
they
through
go
our
through
committee
the
as well. But the department heads are the ones that, or the town engineer, various other employees set up the bid specs and then evaluate the bids. And also, many times, they evaluate the bidders as well and rate them accordingly.
There is no anticipated change in process in terms of drafting the specification and processing that specification, publishing, soliciting bids, evaluating those bids, and then coming in with a recommendation. All of that will be done at the department level, and then obviously the board will be asked to accept or reject the award of the contract.
But even without that best value designation, I think this is what we've been doing right along. And many times you build it into the bid spec itself. As an example, there was some discussion at our last town board meeting about the Pelican street sweeper being significantly more than the next bid, but at the same time, the Pelican was a heavier duty machine that was built as a street sweeper that is an essential component of our chip seal program here.
But it met the specifications.
Right, I believe, just to be clear, I don't want to have anyone think that we have been doing anything but competitive bidding. We've only been doing competitive bidding. The change is only relative to the factors you can consider in awarding the contract.
Right.
So there still need to be, as I said, quantitative factors generally speaking. And you still need to have a responsible bidder, and you still need to have a responsive bidder. So that bidder still needs to meet all of the criteria. But in the past, we've been, if we have a responsible bidder, and if we have somebody who is responsive, that is, does not take exception to any of the bid specifications, then under law, we are required to award it to the lowest priced bid.
Or not awarded at all.
Or not awarded at all, correct, Supervisor. This just opens up the opportunity to consider other value items. And those are all disclosed or are to be disclosed in the bid specification so the bidders know what it is they're bidding on. And when the bid is awarded or when the contract is awarded, those are the factors that are analyzed. So it is a change in how the bid is analyzed and how the bid is awarded or the contract is awarded. But we really haven't had that ability to really make those determinations up until this point under the competitive bidding law, which I know that Tim and all the department heads follow very strictly.
Good. Thanks, Chris. Good thorough report. Jason?
Yes, Public Safety Committee, we met yesterday morning at 8 a.m. and we had of course, we started with our networking with the various public safety agencies that serve the town. During that, the Brighton Ambulance was able to report on their open house that took place on May 20th. They had approximately 200 people attend that. They were pleased. Captain Cathaldi from the police reported that the Tour de Cure went off this past Sunday out of MCC without a hitch, over approximately 2,000 riders this year. So that seems to be going well at that location. The other items that were discussed also is by Chris Roth brought up a potential town code amendment to require a certificate of fitness operational permit for firms and contractors who are installing fire safety devices over at newly constructed businesses, newly constructed buildings. That there have been some problems in the past when they get to that point to have that installed. That's usually the last thing that's installed, and sometimes the contractors aren't able to meet the specifications and the requirements of the town, and this would be a way of pre-screening those entities. That way, hopefully, the process could go smoother. It's still in the infancy stages, and there'll be further discussions on that. Our next meeting will be on Tuesday, July 18th. Oh, in addition to that, we did have somebody come for the open forum. It was a resident of Warren Avenue, bringing us up to date of his observations regarding the traffic calming. In fact, he's noticed an uptick in traffic since the Monroe Avenue construction project has started. He did bring to our attention that there were some speed limit signs that were obscured by some trees, and the town is going to be addressing that as well, to the extent that we're able to do that under the code. So our next meeting will be on Tuesday, July 8th. We meet at 8 o'clock in the morning. We meet in the lower level conference room, and the public is invited to attend.
Thanks, Jason. Separately and not coincidentally, Tim Keefe and I had a meeting first thing this morning, and both of us actually did take a ride down Warren Avenue yesterday following that discussion, and Tim has made note of what he observed as it relates to the conversation at the meeting. So we'll be taking action. And Mark, I don't know if you want to address the continuing role that the Brighton Police Department is playing in terms of special attention there.
Since the crash about a year and a half ago, we have identified Warren Avenue as a problematic area, and they're doing traffic special attentions, which include pretty aggressive enforcement. We continue to monitor on a monthly basis the activity of the officers. I can tell you they're writing a lot of tickets. It may not be surprising to some. Some are neighbors in the area, and we're receiving some feedback about our presence, and we'll be there because it has been determined to be problematic, and we're going to attempt to calm it. So, can I address something that we talked about yesterday, Jason?
Sure.
Next Friday, the 20th of June, there'll be a large-scale, multi-jurisdictional training exercise at MCC. There will be a heavy public outreach early in the week. It's designed to test law enforcement's response to an ongoing active event in a school setting. County players, state players, the Brighton Police will participate, MCC peace officers will participate, the FBI is participating, and there'll be a number of strategies that will be deployed and another number of techniques that will be tested that day. There will be some discussion prior to the event to give people an understanding what is happening, that it is only a police training exercise. There'll be early press releases coming out, I believe, Tuesday or Wednesday, and then on Friday we'll be doing a large-scale press conference. But should anybody get any feedback, this is a designed exercise that has been in the planning stages for 2 years. The County Office of Emergency Management has taken the lead role in this, and they're doing a phenomenal job. State Homeland Security is also involved, and when it's all said and done, we hope to take a lot of takeaways and further our tactical planning and approaches to major events. So that's what will be going on next Friday in the town.
Thanks, Mark. Yes, that's a great summary. I know there will be questions, and
there'll be questions, and there may be some spillover of noise from the exercise. They're trying to make it as realistic as possible. The campus will be shut as of noon. It'll go into a lockdown mode. Perimeters will be established, and it is active police training with multiple layers of security. And I've looked at the plans. I've been part of the planning process. It's a great job. I think it's a very realistic, real-world exercise that we hope never to have to use.
Local government officials, myself included, will be involved in the process, and sadly, we continue to see again and again why such training exercises are so important. Public Works, Jim is not here. Chris, do you have a...
Mr. Vogel did chair the Public Works meeting on June the 2nd. I attended as a member of the committee, and I report now as vice chair in his absence. As usual, it was quite an agenda, but one item which was quite interesting was the suggestion that we perhaps change our signage for handicapped accessibility from a individual in a wheelchair sitting back, looking somewhat inert and handicapped, as opposed to leaning forward in an active mode. I thought it'd be a wonderful change. And unfortunately, we didn't bring a copy of it so we could show. But we also had an extended discussion about our animal code, which is discussing what sort of farm-type animals we might have in town and or not, and lot size, and the different sorts of animals, whether or not chickens could be kept and not roosters, and then get into things like alpacas and llamas and miniature sheep and all sorts of other items. But we're taking a long look at that, and Ramsey Boehner on our planning department here is also looking at it, making his recommendations as well. We had a discussion of the drainage issues over on Susquehanna in their rear yards, and it looks like we're moving forward towards a drainage district there with the assistance of the town as well. And then the proposed Pinnacle Hill subdivision, instead of zoning, as yet they don't really have an application, I don't believe, but a suggestion of what sort of incentives and amenities might be proposed in that instance. And again, that would be here west of Clinton Avenue and south of Highland, back of Persimmon Park. And it looks to be a sensitive development of much less than what could be developed back in there in a subdivision. So that's of great interest, obviously, to the committee and the board. But the next meeting will be July 7th at 9 a.m. It will be in the downstairs conference area, and the public is invited to attend.
Thank you, Chris. Let's now go back to the public hearing on the proposed Buckland Park parking restrictions local law, and I'll ask the clerk, has the necessary legal notice been published in this matter?
Yes, the notice was published in the Brighton Pittsburgh Post on June 5th.
Thank you. Legal notice having been properly published, I now declare this public hearing to be open, and I'll ask Commissioner Tim Keefe to briefly describe, and perhaps Chief Henderson will want to chime in as well.
Thank you, Supervisor. Back on May 9th, I had sent a communication to the board that was at your first meeting in May to set the public hearing for this. This is an issue that has previously been identified and resurrected through committee. Parks and Rec Committee, I believe, initiated it to a certain degree. Louise, the chairman there, John Steinbrenner. We have a situation that we have an access road into the park that people like to park immediately along the road for convenience and accessibility to fields and sporting events. It does create a safety problem. Most notably, we have the mix of the pedestrians and park users crossing the road, coming out between cars, with cars traveling the road. The width of the roadway effectively becomes narrowed because there's parking along both sides, making for a fairly dangerous situation at times, depending on the attention to the drivers or the attention of the pedestrians or lack thereof at times, and also access for emergency vehicles. The premise for this, besides safety, would be to have the park restricted. I'm not sure if the camera can zoom in on this or not, but it was from Westfall Road down to the primary main parking lot that exists in the park that has now been striped, which should help immensely with parking. So we should have more orderly parking there and more parking spaces available because it is now has the lines delineating the parking. And it's about 650 feet long along the roadway. That gives us adequate coverage down to the intersection with the parking lot. And in the meantime, under the supervisor's direction and in cooperation with the chief, we have temporarily posted no parking along there, trying to get people acclimated to the fact that this is coming. And I know the chief may want to add a little bit to this, but as we stand now, with everything being noticed for the public hearing, we have the motion before us to put up parking restrictions along both sides of the road to Buckland Park.
Thank you, Mark.
We took the approach when we put up the temporary police order that restricted parking on a temporary basis until the ordinance could be passed. The goal is voluntary compliance. And what we have done, similar to what we do with our winter ordinance, is when the winter ordinance goes into effect, there's a period of warning. We put a warning notice on a vehicle, and we look for voluntary compliance. What I'm hearing from the officers is that since we've posted the area with the temporary police order, we have some level of voluntary compliance. We had printed some orange, high visible cards that indicate that they're in violation of a parking restriction, and the goal is voluntary compliance. That seemed to work. This will help us in the event that we get somebody that chooses not to voluntarily comply. It's a public safety issue. We heard very clear that on very heavily used nights, it became problematic for especially the young people trying to cross the road. So hopefully with this ordinance, with voluntary compliance, with now a better understanding that this is a problem, we won't have to write a lot of tickets. You know, sometimes the question is, why are we writing so many tickets? The goal is to just get voluntary compliance. Park in the parking lot that is very well striped now. There is really no reason to park on this roadway.
But if necessary,
we will write
the tickets.
And if it's such a hazard that a public safety vehicle, primarily a fire truck or an ambulance, could not get in, we will, according to the authority allowed due to us, New York State, we will tow vehicles.
All right. Hopefully that won't happen.
Ever.
I don't expect it will, but it's good to have that there as a backstop in case of an emergency. Is there anyone that would like to address this public hearing on this proposed local law? Tim did correctly note this did start with really unanimous request from the members of the Parks and Recreation Committee and correspondence that they sent. You know, that's something that we've all seen and are responding to tonight. Is there anyone on the board that would like to comment during the public hearing?
It seems an appropriate restriction. I think there's got to be a lot of concern about children running in and out, but from between those cars, those fields are heavily used, and it is a bit of an inconvenience, and we are certainly sensitive to that. But so moms and dads, please arrive just a few minutes earlier so your kids can get out on the field in time and not hold up the game, but at the same time park in the parking lot and get there safely.
Yep, great.
I think it should also be noted that it is not restricted on the road that goes from the concession stand to the lodge.
To the lodge in the back.
In the back. You could still
lot.
park along there if you have to, if there's no spaces. But it's just between Westfall Road and the parking lot in the front.
I just have a question. Tim, now that the parking lot has been restriped, how many parking spaces are there available?
I believe it is around 200, but I would have to verify, Jason. If you had asked me, I would have had a specific count.
No, quite all right. And is it the experience that, I know it's a heavily used park, I've been there on evenings and you see all the fields, which is great to see, but is the parking adequate to accommodate all of the users of the park at peak times?
Depending on the nights and the events, it should accommodate most. Sometimes we have groups show up that are spontaneous. Very popular park, very popular location for some groups, and sometimes there's more people than there are parking places. So those are the ones we can't control, but I'll have to say the popularity of the park remains, and it will, I'm sure it will be that way for a while. But for the organized events, generally, we're in pretty good shape.
On Tuesday nights, when we, in the summer, during the Sunset Serenade concert evenings, we have made a decision to hold one of the fields vacant and not have it be used because with full use of all the fields, it was more than the lot could handle. Our experience last year, and at that point, that main parking field was not lined, and you do add parking spaces when you line them. People know where they can park. That will add some spaces, but that helped a great deal, having that off field on Tuesday nights.
That's a very good question. Tim, does Matt Bean monitor the parking over there, or does the highway department monitor it all, the capacity and whether the overuse of that parking lot?
The park staff, not Matt himself personally, unless it's during the day, but the staff that's there during the events, if there are problems, we'll get that feedback. Right now, we are somewhat restricted because as Louise said, there may be other alternative parking besides the stripe spots in the parking areas that are designated. But I think until we master plan the park itself more so, and we determine other needs and other availability for parking, what we have is what we have to utilize.
So it might be useful data for the master plan.
Right. So if we do have that, and I will reinforce that with the staff over there, that as they see parking problems. But some of it's hard to control. Not only do you have the participants in the events, and usually that includes mom and or dad with the team players. You might get grandpa or grandma, and you get a lot of turnout, and it is, again, very heavily used from the standpoint of family. And then if you have people using the pavilion or the shelters on top of the other activities, it adds to it. But we'll keep an eye on it.
Great. Any further comment either from the audience or from the town board during the public hearing? Then I declare the public hearing to be closed.
Just, I'm sorry, one thing. You mentioned.
I have not closed it yet.
You mentioned the letter from the Parks and Recreation Committee, or the Parks and Rec Citizens Advisory Board.
Yes.
I don't see that referenced in the resolution that I prepared to be received and filed. I know it was probably received and filed.
It was
some other
received
time,
and filed
but
when
not
we
part of
set
this
the
public hearing record. If the board wishes it to be part of the public hearing record, it should include that in the resolution.
Let's so designate as we do that resolution. So can I have a motion then? I now do declare the public hearing to be closed. I would ask for a motion to, you have a proposed form of resolution here to approve that local law, and I would simply ask that you, in making that motion, include the correspondence from the Parks and Recreation Committee.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DeBonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Maley?
Aye. Okay, going back to, we have no old business, to new business, reading and approval of the claims. Chris?
Bill, I've reviewed tonight claims totaling $714,582.83. They appear to be in order. The claims of interest were some $84,510 for the suit coat surface treatment with polymer, which is oil and stone, or chip seal program that's submitted for the most recent invoice, at least. And Tim, would you describe that for us?
Certainly, Chris. One of our road program aspects is surface treatment versus milling and repaving. We tend to do the streets on cycles that are generally 8 to 10 years. You will get some type of treatment, depending on the road. It could be more frequently or a little less frequently. And we usually surface treat, which would be the chip seal, 2-to-1 to milling and resurfacing. It is more economical than milling and resurfacing, though you don't want to go too far with the layers like a sandwich. You want to get back to putting the asphalt down at some point. But the polymer and basically the process that we have now is much more precise than it used to be years ago. And we do get the stone swept up usually within a 1 to 2 week period. So after that time period, the road itself and, for the most part, most of the things that are the downside to it are gone, very temporary, and it adds life to the surfaces. It adds longevity from the standpoint that it's a very good product. The polymer itself with the oil actually allows it to expand and contract, and it will refill cracks as it heats up in the summertime, and it's much more flexible in the wintertime than the slurry seal process we used to use, which looks better, but it doesn't last near as long. So it's a very good process, and we've just about completed all of our chip seal for the year already, under the guise of Mr. Pete Springer. Pete leads our program, as far as our street program goes. He's great, does a great job getting things done. He always wants to get started early, so we get in there and get started. So it's been a good year so far.
I'll have to talk to Pete about it and ask him, get his feedback as well. As people talk about the chips on their street, but you guys get them up quickly. Also, $102,600 for the library HVAC unit. Also, pipelining of the sewer. An invoice came in for a total of about $160,000 for East Avenue and Monteroy. Could you tell us about that, Tim?
Yeah, the East Avenue one of concern, Chris, is actually an interesting one because the sanitary sewer is directly beneath the storm sewer. Years ago, someone had a brilliant idea to do that so that if you had to ever dig up the sanitary, you had to dig up, probably 2 or 3 other utilities as well. So the slip lining process is great. You're able to go in there. It's basically like an inverted, you take a tube sock and you put it in and you force it out with warm water, and it forces it against the sides. The warm water activates the catalyst in there. It's a resin-cured type of epoxy hardener, and it takes the shape of the pipe. And as long as you can get the tube through the pipe, then you have a brand new sewer, and you don't have to do any digging. You basically can go in and open up all the sanitary lateral connections from the inside. They have a special device that goes in there and cut it. You just have to know where those are, which we do televising ahead of time. So it's minimal, really minimal invasive type construction. So it's a fantastic way to do a lot of our rehabilitation. And, it minimizes the asphalt restoration, the dig time, and the inconvenience that the public would have over a longer period of time. So this was a really good application with this over-under sewer. It allows us to take care of our sewer without having to dig up the state storm sewer on top.
Other claims, I see we had 11 young scientists that had a program. I wanted to see what Becky had to say about that in the rec department, but that was $125. And I did notice that there was a height-adjustable lectern amongst the claims. And now I see it right before us here, so that can go up and down. Is it power-operated, Bill, for your?
No, it's manual. It's there was a significant price differential if you had a power-operated one, so it's manual.
Well, you'll just have to.
We tested a few people of different heights and how it worked for them, and I think it'll work well for us. The old one,
good-looking unit.
The old one had been there for a lot of years. It was due for a replacement.
Where is it now?
And the item I was particularly interested, though, was the dunk tank, where you took several swims. $646 at the bicentennial program. That's part of their budget.
And that wasn't just for the dunk tank. That was a payment for a vendor, most of which has been reimbursed, and I'll get to that shortly when I thank really the people who made our great picnic celebration possible.
But I want to point out,
but that was just a small part of a bill for some of the games and entertainment at what was that?
Which was quite a bit there. But and contrary to our county legislature, I would like the record to reflect that although I bought 6 balls, it only took me 2 strikes and one solid
Two
hit.
balls and a strike.
2 balls and a strike,
He took
to
me
put you
twice.
right in the tank.
The second one got him.
Was that right?
Good job.
All right, so with that, the claims appear to be in order. Bill, and I move that they be approved for payment.
Second.
The levity of the dunk tank was a lot of fun, and I was in there to raise money for the Brighton Food Cupboard, and I was glad I had a chance to do it. The cold water felt pretty good on a hot day, but I'll talk a little bit more about the picnic in just a little bit. But I think it's important to take note before we vote of, 2 very significant expenditures. You mentioned the cost of the chip seal and the cost of the balloon, the sewer.
Lining.
The lining, yeah, we have a tremendous, and in many cases, aged and aging infrastructure in the town. It is always one of our very largest capital expenditure items every year. And things like the sewer lining, things like the chip sealing, things like the sidewalks, those infrastructure projects are there. They're there year after year. We review them through our capital improvement planning process, and I'll also talk about that a little bit more later. But without those significant expenditures, it would not be long before our infrastructure, the things that keep us going, really the roads that we drive on, the sidewalks that we walk on, flushing a toilet, all of those important things that we do, we could not do without the ongoing infrastructure improvements. So as we go through the budget development process, those are significant expenditures, and they sometimes are not very visible expenditures. You will never see us lining that sewer. You won't see them televising to identify weaknesses. You may see the chip seal or the sidewalk work and a lot of the infrastructure, but it is very important, and without it, the quality of life in Brighton would be seriously impacted. So we make those expenditures, they're big and they're important.
It's what we do at this level of government.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Anything further? Please call the roll.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Next, we have an appointment, a reappointment of David Ryder to the Conservation Board. Louise?
The next motion is to reappoint David Ryder to the Conservation Board for a 2-year term effective July 1st, 2014 through June 30th, 2015. I move on the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
Thank you, David, for your service and for your continued service. Discussion? Dan, please call the roll.
Is that 1 year? Am I missing something?
It says it's a 2-year term.
2 years.
Right, but the
July
dates,
Oh, yeah, let's,
It should be through the
The
16th,
resolution is-
2016.
Counselor Gordon?
resolution correct and
Resolution is
the, okay. You're right,
Oh,
and
the
let's
resolution is
retroactively make sure we note a change to the agenda. That term in the agenda should read 2016, June 30, 2016 is the end of his term. Thank you for that catch.
all right, but in the course of noting that, I missed the second, so, you know,
Chris did.
if Chris, okay.
And with that, please call the roll.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Chris?
Bill, the next item is to authorize the transfer of funds totaling $10,000 from various Highway Department road repair accounts to the Highway Department Maintenance Machine Repair Service account. I move that we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney for the town.
Second.
Discussion?
Bill, this was discussed at FAST, but was necessitated by unanticipated repairs necessary to the lift in the mechanics bay at the Ops Center. I did notice a claim for some $26,000 for that repair. in amongst this month's claims as well. How'd that repair go, Tim?
Very well.
Is it going up and down now?
Yeah, it was, these things never occur at a good time. Obviously, and to have one of our lifts out of service, you know, it really handicaps the ability of the mechanics to work on multiple vehicles. They've done a great job during the interim, but being back in service certainly beats, you know, having one that we just repaired, actually two last year. So it's, you know, they've been the original lift since the facility was built.
Excuse me.
Okay. Anything further? Please call the roll.
Councilmember Novros.
Aye.
Councilmember DeFonzio.
Aye.
Councilmember Warner.
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy.
Aye. Louise?
The next matter is to accept a donation from the Garden Lovers Club of Brighton in the amount of $249 to be used towards the planting of the Arbor Day tree at Unity Park. I move on the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
Discussion? That's the 12 Corners Park,
Oh, I had never heard it.
formal name. Yep.
I never realized that was
Formal
the
name of
Unity
that.
Park.
I didn't either.
It's not used very often. Most, it's referred to as the 12 Corners Park. Motion and a second. Further discussion? Please call the roll.
Councilmember Novros.
Aye.
Councilmember DeFonzio.
Aye.
Councilmember Warner.
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy.
Aye. Chris?
Bill, the matter discussed at the FAST meeting is the adoption of an electronic banking policy to document authorization and procedures for electronic banking services exclusive to particular users. This was presented by our finance director, Suzanne Zasso, and I move that we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney for the town.
Second.
Suzanne, anything you'd like to say on this?
Really, the policy is just documenting what we're already doing with our online banking. So it's just setting those procedures down to paper and having employees that are using online banking sign off on that they've read those policies and procedures and that they're following them.
And as noted, you know, different users, different positions have,
Different access
that's right.
levels.
Some are there literally just, you know, to review records, statements and the like, and others have authority to initiate transactions. I think it's well thought out. You put a lot of time into it, and I certainly support it. Anything further? Please call the roll.
Councilmember Novros.
Aye.
Councilmember DeFonzio.
Aye.
Councilmember Warner.
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy.
Aye.
I have a question, now that I know where Unity Park is. Whatever happened with the proposal from the chamber for that, and will this
Gonna
tree?
That's going to be proceeding, and they're going to be working with one of our landscape architects on one of our boards to review that, and then we'll be bringing it back to the board for formal action, hopefully as soon as our next meeting.
Great. And this tree is going to be, not going to be in the middle of where it shouldn't be if they're going to do that?
No, this is replacing another tree that was diseased.
Okay.
But since you've got the floor, Louise, why don't you do the next one?
Okay. The next matter is to authorize a budget transfer in the amount of $1,000 to support the purchase of a fireproof file cabinet for the Human Resources Department. I move on the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
I believe is that $1,100? Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I have my glasses on, I couldn't see. 1,100.
A motion, is there a second?
Second?
The records in the department, you know, we need to keep them secure and fire safe, so that's the reason we have it. We already have some, but we needed one more.
Okay.
Anything further? Please call the roll.
Councilmember Novros.
Aye.
Councilmember DeFonzio.
Aye.
Councilmember Warner.
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy.
Aye. Jason?
Next matter is to accept donation in the amount of $2,990 from Brighton Rotary for the purchase of 2 automated defibrillator units with approval to amend the 2014 budget to increase appropriations to support same. I move we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
I have a question. Where are these going to be put?
We'll get, in fact, where have they been put? And obviously, I'm very pleased that, that the Rotary actually, partly through an international grant and partly from funds of the local Brighton Rotary Club, supported this. But we also received grant money from Senator Robach. So I'll let Mark answer your question.
Okay.
We did, Supervisor. About a year ago, we started to talk about AEDs and the role that they play in the first response matrix, and we have them in the police cars. They were starting to age out, and we were looking at a funding mechanism to replace them. And Brighton Rotary had approached my office and indicated that they'd be willing to participate in some manner in an AED replacement program. At the same time, we received a letter from Senator Robach who had indicated that there was some grant funding set aside for the police department in the amount of $10,000. We combined that $10,000 with this $2,990. We're able to replace our 7 AEDs, add 2 to the patrol fleet, and with this donation, we were able to replace a fixed mount outside the police department, outside the courts, and one here outside the auditorium. So the 2 that are stationed in the town hall, this part and the public safety complex have been replaced, and we have a total of 9 in the patrol fleet that we are using. I was invited last week to speak to the Rotary. I thanked them for their generous donation, talked about how we combine the 2 funding sources, and we're able to not only increase the police fleet by 2, the AEDs, but actually replace those that were contained here in the town hall.
And in the town hall, you have yearly instruction on how to use it, or some, or?
There has
It's,
been.
the initial training that you get is part of a CPR AED certification from the Red Cross. It's a 2-year certificate. We train with Brighton Voluntary Ambulance, and then we make our training available to anyone, town staff that wants to use it. The nice thing about these units that we have, anybody that has 0 training and is confronted with an emergency, it's very user-friendly. It will not shock if it's not warranted. If it's not placed appropriate, it'll talk back, it'll give you feedback, user feedback, but they're part of life-saving efforts, life-sustaining efforts, and it was with this generous donation, along with the senator, that we were able to not only get the stuff we use in the field, but also here at the town hall.
I think that's great that Brighton Rotary made that donation to the town. That group is always shown a real commitment to our town,
Yeah.
along with the Garden Club folks with a new tree in the Unity Park. It's heartening to see.
Thanks. Anything further? Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye.
I'm sorry, I missed the second on
Chris?
It was Chris. And speaking of generous businesses and organizations, Louise.
The next matter is to accept cash and in-kind service donations totaling $7,219.94 from various local businesses to support the 2014 Clean Sweep program. I move on the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
And Louise, why don't you, if you don't mind sharing with us, since that you've worked so hard on Clean Sweep to make it happen, if you can share with us because it's a long list of businesses and individuals that support.
Thank you. It's in here somewhere. Yes, I was really pleased that most of the people that the in-kind donations, everybody very, very eagerly supported us again. And that was Bagel Land, gave us 16 dozen bagels. Great Harvest Bread gave us 4 dessert platters. Starbucks gave us 3 Cambros of coffee. Tops gave us 10 dozen donuts and 4 gallons of orange juice. And Wegmans gave us 48 subs. And there was not very much left over this time. We did lower the amount of food, but by a little bit, but it was scarfed up very quickly. And our donors, our sponsors were Brighton Chamber of Commerce, Brighton Fire Department, Brighton Rotary, Brighton Volunteer Ambulance, Canandaigua National Bank, Dollinger Associates, Donna Matthews Hair Salon, Microworks, Ontario Hearing, Roselawn Neighborhood Association, Rustic Village Apartments, and Waste Management. Waste Management helped us get a grant for $4,000, which was very much appreciated. We are in very good shape for Clean Sweep to be an ongoing event, and we also have this money in an account where we can help the police department when we have our pharmaceutical recycling by purchasing the barrels for the medications. And if we need any other somethings for the other ones, like we can help out. I think that we're going to be ongoing with every 6 months having the electronics and the shredding and the pharmaceuticals and the yearly clean sweep. There were a couple people that wanted to know if they could do ongoing clean sweep throughout the year, because after the 2 or 3 weeks, they start to see litter again. And I said, well, not on this scale, we can't. You know, if you want to organize your neighborhood, that's fine. But everybody seems to be very enthusiastic about it, and we're going to continue doing it. I thank all these people from the bottom of my heart. We couldn't have done it without their help.
And your leadership. Thank you, Louise. And you know, the other thing you might even suggest, if you know, neighborhoods or the like want to do it, there are, you know, the DOT does have their Adopt a Highway program. Some of the main roads in Brighton have been adopted, but there are others that haven't, and
The state,
in a lot of ways, those are some of the most visible places over time.
the county has roads, and so does the state, and a lot of the roads that had been adopted are not adopted anymore, and they do have vacancies. So you could call the county state DOT, Joyce Cordillo, or the state. I don't know the person that contacted the state, but I know Elmwood Avenue is available, and
There you go.
and it's part of Clinton Road. So yeah, there's lots of ways to continue to help.
Thanks, Louise. Anything further? Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Jason.
Next matter is to authorize supervisor to execute easement agreements and certificate of exemption forms, paren TP 584, for sidewalk easement along cul-de-sac right-of-way at Lot W10 on Pendleton Hill within the Reserve subdivision. I move we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
As noted, this is an easement, a sidewalk easement. I know that the first residents have moved into the reserve now. They had their first house closing recently. There are a number of other houses that are under construction. I know at least one other certificate of occupancy has been issued. So that project is moving from project to home for people, and that's a great thing to see.
I understand sales have been very active there, and some suggested it may be selling faster than anticipated.
Well, there's certainly, I know there were a lot of visits during their sort of their grand opening that they just recently had, so.
I was talking to a realtor, and he seemed
Oh.
pretty excited. But it looks great over there.
Good. Anything further? Please call the roll.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. The last item relates to proposed legislation. This is a matter that we've talked about in the past, but I think I'm very pleased with this proposed legislation, and I wanted to bring it forward to the board so that we could all express our support here, but convey it to the people that count in Albany. Attorney General Schneiderman put forward a comprehensive proposal that I think really addresses the issues that we have been vexed with as we look at not all of the abandoned or distressed properties in town are foreclosures, but a significant number are. And most, many communities, particularly urban communities, have far more than we do. But what we found is that these do take a lot of our time because they're ongoing, recurring maintenance issues. And that, I think, is the biggest part of the Attorney General's proposal. This will require banks or other institutional mortgage holders to begin maintaining properties once they become vacant during the foreclosure process. Right now, they have no legal obligation, and a court on Long Island confirmed this last year. Banks have no legal obligation to maintain properties that are pending foreclosure until after they have actually been foreclosed on and the bank has taken title. What often happens is that people move out. Unfortunately, sometimes that may be because either intentionally or not, the property owners, because they are still the property owners until the foreclosure takes place, may be led to believe that they have to get out once the foreclosure process begins. So you have these banks in sort of these homes in sort of a purgatory, or as has been used to talk about this law, they become sort of zombie homes, the Walking Dead, if you will. They're vacant. They're deteriorating. Obviously, the longer they deteriorate, the less likely they are to be able to be sold and rehabilitated and reused. So the Attorney General's proposal requires bank maintenance after they become vacant. When we know we have a bank foreclosure here, Chris Roth has had pretty good success in identifying who the bank is, reaching out to them, and getting them to put the property on a mow list, so at least the grass gets mowed. But this will streamline that process. It will require the banks to do that work, but it will also preclude them, protects the homeowners of these properties. One of the other reasons these properties go downhill is that the homeowners get out. And this will make sure that banks do not pressure homeowners to get out of homes when they're in foreclosure. It will create a registry. It will require them to give notice to us. It touches on all of the points that we have talked about here at this board that become challenging for us with these properties. So this legislation, this proposed resolution rather, would indicate our support for the Abandoned Property Neighborhood Relief Act of 2014, which is the legislative implementation of Attorney General Schneiderman's proposal. Senate Bill 7350 and Assembly Bill 09341. It would indicate our support and ask that and direct that the supervisor send correspondence to our state legislators, Assemblyman Morelli and Senator Robach, also to the governor and to the lieutenant governor, and also to the Attorney General, urging support for this legislation. So I'm going to support this as our leaders from communities across the state. And I hope that our legislature, this session, we still got a few weeks left in the current session. This is a priority bill, and I encourage our Senate and our Assembly to take action on this and that the governor sign it. So with that, can I have a motion and a second, and then we can have any further discussion?
Bill, with respect to support for the Abandoned Property Neighborhood Relief Act of 2014, I move we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
Any discussion?
Bill,
Louise,
you said-
you've been an advocate.
Yes, I have. You said initially abandoned properties and distressed properties. Distressed properties is not mentioned in here.
No, it's abandoned properties. I mean, I use the term distressed because, we have some properties are abandoned and some are, distressed. One of the things I say to people all the time is when these properties are present in people's neighborhoods, every one of them seems to have a story. Mm-hmm. A lot of them, some of them are foreclosures, but others reflect mental health issues, age issues, divorce, perhaps. Those other ones aren't covered. We will continue to work on those, and Chris spends an awful lot of time on those. But this legislation really addresses abandon, and that's a good thing, because what we don't want to do, and what this, again, when I say this legislation is comprehensive, it really is. It's well thought out, because one of the things it does is it encourages people to stay in their homes even during foreclosure. It penalizes banks that take action to try to move people out. They still own the property. In most cases, under their mortgage, they still have the right to bring their mortgages current and return to good standing. And obviously, houses tend to be in better shape when they're occupied. So at all sorts of levels, he's really touched on hot buttons for us, and I'm just very pleased that this legislation has come out.
As it has a good chance of passing, do you think?
I think it has a good chance of passing, and the question is, will it pass in this session? Because the end of the session, always there's a lot going on.
Mm-hmm.
On that note,
only a couple
I was doing a little bit of research while we were going through the meeting here. So here's what I can tell you about the current status of this bill and a related bill. The Assembly version of this bill has been reported out of the Judiciary Committee to the Codes Committee, and out of the Codes Committee to the Ways and Means Committee. Typically in the New York State Assembly, the Ways and Means Committee is the last committee that the bill will see before it hits the floor. In the Senate, the matter has been referred only to the Judiciary Committee, and no action has been taken on that bill as of this date. However, the bill is sponsored in the Senate by Senator Klein, in the Assembly by Assemblywoman Weinstein, and both of them are also co-sponsors of related foreclosure legislation to extend what is now in place, which is a homeowners protection law requiring a 90-day notice and a settlement conference of foreclosures. Those laws were just extended literally this week. Yesterday, the Senate voted 56-1 to extend that. June 2nd, the Assembly passed that. So that is very, very recent. So, I mean, I don't have a crystal ball, but there is action on the related bills by the same two sponsors just in this past week. There's probably 2 to 3 weeks worth of session time left before they adjourn for the summer. So there's a chance, I think.
Great.
Yeah, I think it ends on, it's either this Thursday or next Thursday is when the end of the session is. So I want to say the 20th, 19th, I believe, is the last day of the session.
So if it passes, what is the local municipality's next move? Do we have to establish some sort of a body or somebody in Tim's office?
The way this abandoned property law would work is it would require, would create a state registry of these abandoned properties. It would require the lender to report to a registry when a property is deemed abandoned, or when they start a foreclosure. So it covers properties in foreclosure, as the supervisor was indicating, and also properties which are deemed abandoned, which would be a property on which mortgage payments have not been made for 3 months, and there's other physical evidence of it being abandoned, which are set forth in the proposed law. I believe then the local municipality, if the bank, it puts a new obligation on the bank really to maintain the property, but if the bank does not maintain the property, then the law gives the local municipality the legal right to go into court to enforce this new law and insist that the maintenance be performed.
And that's what a town on Long Island tried to do last year. They sued both the homeowner, but also the bank that was processing the foreclosure. And, you know, much as I hate to say it, but reading the law as it currently stands, the court probably ruled consistent with the law in saying no, the bank did not have that obligation until they took title. But Ken is right. This will provide a second and usually much more effective party with liability to do that work with a heavy a heavy weapon in case they drop the ball and don't do it.
And is the bank the one that will be selling the house once, or will they give the homeowner another chance of staying in,
I think the answer is it depends. I mean,
It doesn't change the foreclosure.
Right,
This
it
particular
depends-
legislation doesn't change the foreclosure procedures.
It depends on where this all happens in the process. If a foreclosure is commenced and the property is abandoned, it's vacant, the weeds are growing, the bank has an obligation to go in. Now, a homeowner could come back before that foreclosure process is completed through a foreclosure settlement conference or otherwise, and try to redeem their property or get their mortgage modified in such a way that they could afford it, and then they could possibly move back into the property. So it doesn't, but you're right, it doesn't terminate those rights or those processes at all.
And frankly, hopefully, I'm hopeful that one of the spin-offs might be that now that banks have this maintenance obligation, they're less likely to let these things linger. They may have a little bit more incentive to engage more expeditiously in the necessary settlement conferences. I don't know. And maybe other parts of the state are that the process is even slower than it is here.
Yeah, the settlement conference itself does create another procedural hurdle for a lender to get through, and does slow the foreclosure process down a little bit. The law also has, some, I hesitate to use the word, but I will, loopholes relative to, for example, when a receiver in foreclosure is appointed. This is going to be the court administrator, if you will, who's going to determine how much is due and how the property is to be sold. Once that receiver is appointed and while that receiver is serving, but before an actual judgment of foreclosure, the law says there is no obligation during that period of time to maintain the property, which is sort of curious. So that could be months and months worth of time. I'm not sure why that choice was made, but it isn't a cure-all, but it's a huge step in the direction of getting lenders to take responsibility for maintaining those properties.
Presumably, the goal is to alleviate concern that the receivers might have some liability, but I can't see where they would. It would have been very easy to craft legislation that would have worked the other way, that they would have said, but in no event shall the receiver be, responsible for maintenance. They chose not to. That may be a flaw, but it's certainly not outweighed by as you said, all the benefits in the law.
Well, it's a step forward.
Yeah.
Absolutely. At near my state tax receivers conference this week, I actually spoke about this and urged that the association sign on to this as well. So I don't know, it won't happen if it actually gets through in this next week and a half of this session, but I think if it carries forward to the next one before action is taken, hopefully the association will sign on to this as well, and urged everyone in the meantime, my colleagues to get involved and contact their local legislators across the state to try and get this to the floor faster. The other encouraging note on this front too is if this doesn't go well, or in these exceptions and odd things, did speak with some of the tax service organizations, and I think I've got a couple of new leads that right now it's very difficult to find out who actually holds the mortgage. There's a couple of, there's the main tax service organization, it's called CoreLogic, and they have several hundred member banks that they process mortgages for. So trying to figure out who it is so we know who to contact. There are a couple members of Tim's staff, are, not going through the yellow pages, but scouring the internet trying to figure out, follow the money trail. And I think I've got a lead on getting full lists of who they service to be able to narrow down quicker. So that's very encouraging. So I'll be working with Tim's staff, in the coming couple of weeks here to get that in place.
Good.
Good. Well, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this? Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Novros.
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio.
Aye.
Councilmember Werner.
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy.
Aye. Matters of the supervisor, we have the expense and revenue report for the period ended May 31st. We will have the full report next month that Suzanne will present, but if we could have a motion to receive and file.
So moved?
Second.
Discussion? Please call the roll.
Councilmember Novros.
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio.
Aye.
Councilmember Werner.
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy.
Aye. Just a couple other matters of the supervisor. We've talked briefly about the picnic, and it was a wonderful success. I do want to thank some people that helped make it such a success. Brighton Kiwanis, the Kids Zone, was a big hit. So thank you to the members of Kiwanis for that. Brighton Neighbors United, and Judy Schwartz is here. Judy, you were there all day. It was a long day. Thank you to you, and thank you to Brighton Neighbors United. People really had fun, and you and Kiwanis together were a huge part of the success. We had a number of businesses that sponsored, Tom Walls, Tops, Lowe's, Summit Federal Credit Union, all were sponsors of the event. Town staff, Matt Beeman and the Parks crew, they were out early, they were out late, and did a lot of work making it possible. Marianne Husser did an awful lot of work, both leading up to the day and the day of the event. And Ray Tierney, again, we thank him. Ray is the chair of the Bicentennial Committee. This was a bicentennial picnic, and boy, again, Ray was on the ground working hard all day. So thank you all for what was a wonderful, wonderful day, and thanks to the weatherman too. Wouldn't have been nearly as nice without his help. We've talked just briefly. The 4th of July is coming up, and that again is always a great day. It's a long day full of activities. In the morning, we have activities in the 12 Corners area. The Chamber of Commerce 5K race starts at 8 o'clock. That's one of the biggest 5K races we're getting close to 1,000 people now that run in that race. So that's always a lot of fun. We're bringing back the 4th of July pancake breakfast. That will also start at 8 o'clock. It'll go from 8 till 11. It'll be in the high school cafeteria. Any runners will get $2 off with their bib. They'll get $2 off the price of a ticket. Adult tickets are $7, and senior and student tickets are $5. That's the 4th of July pancake breakfast from 8 to 11 in the high school cafeteria. At 10:30, the Brighton Chamber of Commerce Memorial Award in the 12 Corners Park. This year we'll be honoring Max Farish. He, of course, did a great deal for the community. He was a business leader. So his members of his family will be there to receive this award and note his name going on the memorial stone in the 12 Corners Park. Then starting at 2 o'clock, our activities shift down to Meridian Center Park. The rides will be there again this year. 2 to 10, the rides will be going. Once again this year, we will have our special wristband deal. If you can buy a wristband anytime between 2 o'clock and 7 o'clock, and during those hours for 5 hours, you can ride all the rides as often as you want, as many times as you want, during that 5-hour period for just $15. We will have music. We've got 2 stages. The food tent stage is, again, we'll have a big tent right in the middle of the park there. provide a little shade for people during the hot hours to have some food or watch the music or wait while their kids or grandkids are riding. But from 2:30 to 4, the Amy Montroy Trio will be playing. From 4:30 to 6, Dave McGrath, who's won the Best of Rochester music winner in the past. And then from 6:30 to 8 o'clock, the Earth Tones will be playing. At 8 o'clock, on the main stage, everybody's favorite Sky Coasters. And if you've been out there on the 4th of July, and I think everybody has at some point, you'll see what a huge draw the Sky Coasters are. The place really fills up. Sky Coasters will be playing from 8 o'clock until 9:45. And then immediately after the Sky Coasters, at dusk, at about 10 minutes to 10, the fireworks, the 4th of July fireworks display put on by Young Explosives. I encourage people, get there early. We've got parking at Meridian Center, but it does fill up. You don't want to wait until 9:30 to try to get into that lot. Come on out early, enjoy the rides, enjoy the food, and enjoy a great day on the 4th of July. Finally, just briefly, we talked a little bit about the budget. We are in the process of preparing the budget process. It's a two-pronged process. We talked a little bit about capital expenditures. We have our 3-year capital improvement plan. The Budget Review Task Force and our Sustainability Oversight Committee review that. We've had our first organizational meeting of the Budget Review Task Force, and Budget Director Andrew Robinson has shared with them our departmental requests for capital items. That's something we will review with those two committees, and we will, those two committees will make recommendations to the CIP that will come to the town board. We're also beginning the budget process next week. Andrew, Suzanne, and I will be meeting with all of our department heads, sharing our guidelines for this coming year's budget in light of the continued challenging financial circumstances, and particularly in light of the governor's tax cap and tax freeze. But we will go through that process. I think, again, it is very important to note, state law requires one public hearing on a budget. And it allows, at least in Monroe County, the budget to be approved actually well after the election cycle. We do a lot more than that to make sure that the budget development process is public, transparent, and involves real public input. We do have these two citizen committees, the Sustainability Oversight Committee and the Budget Review Task Force, that review and make recommendations on both the CIP and the operating budget. In August, we have 2 workshops where each department head appears before the town board in open meeting to present their budget request and answer questions about their budget request. And then finally, in October, the town board holds not 1, but 2 public hearings before taking action to approve the budget in October. That's a process that the community can participate in every step of the way. The budget materials will be online as they're developed. And you will know that your town board is listening to and receiving your comments and your input every step of the way. So you'll be hearing more about the budget development process as we proceed now through October. But I wanted to make everybody aware that that process is, again, well underway. Matters of the attorney to the town. Matters of the clerk.
I have nothing further.
Matters of the town board.
I have nothing.
I just want to mention about the picnic that we had. I've gotten feedback from many people saying that it was such a wonderful feeling of community and people coming together and just having a great time, and couldn't we do it every year? Having done Clean Sweep every year, it's no easy matter, but if we could somehow think about how we can get the community to help organize it again, it's a thought. It's something that we want the people to feel that Brighton is a cohesive community, and we enjoy doing things like that. So it's something to think about. If anybody has any ideas about how we could do it, instead of just having Judy and Rotary and just a few people doing all the work.
It was a lot of people. I mean, but it is a significant effort. There was a committee. There were the other organizations, particularly Kiwanis, that was very much involved in it. I've had people come up to me and ask about whether we're going to do it again, and I didn't have the heart to the day after but I know we'll have those conversations, because yes, people had a great time that day, and let's see what what makes sense.
It's just like I had said about the recycling events, is that people want to do the right thing and to do it, but they don't know how to get it going. And so if you offer something, they'll come step forward and help. So something to think about.
Good. Anything further from the board?
Just as a follow-up to the 4th of July, the 5K sponsored by the Brighton Chamber of Commerce at 8 a.m., they are looking for volunteers.
Yes, thank you.
They need road marshals and people to man the water stops. So the contacts would be Cindy Blair through Magellan Realty and Brennan Redmond through Brighton Securities. And their contact info can be found on the Brighton Chamber's website if anybody's interested in volunteering.
Or you can just let us know, and we'll
Yeah.
pass the word on.
That too.
Anything else? Can I have a motion? Well, before we do that, I want to thank our cable TV staff that brings this meeting out to the public every night. Thanks for your work. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Please call the roll.
Councilmember Novros.
Aye.
Councilmember DeFoncio.
Aye.
Councilmember Werner.
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy.
Aye. Thank you, everybody, for attending. The next town board meeting will be June 25th, 2014 at 7 p.m. right here in the auditorium. Have a great evening.
Sigh.